Afternoon. I am Dara Eaglestaff. I attend Oglala Lakota College, and our project is Reclaiming Sacred Lands, Unveiling the Displacement Narrative, along with Summer Afraid-Hawk and Angelina Wade. The advanced interns, Summer Dupree and Eva Wedell. Our advisors are Camille and Dana, and our ESIIL advisors are Elsa and Nate.
Just a little bit of background, Oceti Shakoi, or Seven Council Fires, and the Bute Oyate of Buffalo Nation have walked the same path since time immemorial. Since European contact, the people and the buffalo have been restricted to smaller portions of land, limiting access to utilizing ancestral lands and maintaining their way of life. And according to the United Nations in 2007, they declared Indigenous peoples shall not be forcefully removed from their lands or territories. No relocation shall take place without the free, prior, and informed consent of the Indigenous peoples concerned and after agreement on just and fair compensation and, where possible, with the option of return. Understanding impacts and land rights. The land weaves a story of the cultural sovereignty of the Oceti Shakoi with the plants and animals that they depend on for survival, which impacts food sovereignty and food security and sovereignty. Access does not always include control and ownership does not always include control and access.
Objective: the project aims to retell the displacement narrative of the Oceti Shakoi and their relationship with the Treaty Lands and the Pate Oyate. Treaty boundaries research question. How can we more accurately portray historic treaty boundaries that affected the Oceti Shakoi way of life? Remapped treaty boundaries according to the treaties. Here is an outline of 1851 Fort Laramie Treaty under the Article 2 description of that treaty. And then in 1868, Fort Laramie Treaty outline of in the dark maroon with the Missouri River on the right side, which is the east bank of the 46th parallel, and then the north state line of Nebraska. And some of the methods that were read and studied of the Fort Laramie Treaty were used in ArcGIS and ArcGIS Pro along with Google Colab. And the maps that were created from the 1851 treaty boundaries, the first map shows using points listed in the treaty, which were interpreted by Eva and Elisha, with from the north part, the White River, going down to the Red Butte Point, and then along the North Platte River, and the purple is all the Black Hills. The second map uses points listed, interpreted by the treaty from Summer Dupree, and then the last third map on the right shows the native lands data with the outline of the 46th latitude and the 104th longitude with the North Nebraska border, which kind of outlines the state of South Dakota, which was not a state at that time.
Hunting rights research question. How has the limitation to access of land affected our hunting rights? The change of range and boundaries has created a disconnect in our way of life. The change of location over time from original homelands to current reservations. These are some of our methods for the original territory. So first we located the data using native lands and other resources, and then we mapped the territories of the Oceti Shakoi and the Lakota people. And then we also used the state and county boundaries as a base map to give you a more ideal current projection. And we also included mapping the waterways described in the treaty. And we also changed projection system to calculate area of land, and we converted that to acres and so that we could calculate percentage of land loss. And on the right are just some pictures of the coding that we used to do this. So some of our results, all tribes in South Dakota have the right to hunt within their tribal boundaries. Each tribe is limited to the amount of tags available for purchase depending on the game hunted and area. All the tribes involved gave up many thousands of acres of land that had been promised in earlier treaties, but retained hunting and fishing rights to the older territory. They also agreed not to attack railroads or settlers. In the map in red and green, the green represents the 1851 Horse Creek Treaty and the red represents the 1868 treaty. Although we were restricted to smaller portions of land in the 1868 treaty, we can assume that the Oceti-Sakowin are still allowed access to hunt within the 1851 boundary. Their reservations, as herein defined, but yet reserve the right to hunt on any lands north of the North Platte and on the Republican Fork of the Smoky Hill River, as long as a buffalo may range there in such numbers as to justify the case, and they, the said Indians, further expressly agree. Within the treaty, it states we have access to hunt on any lands north of the North Platte River. Since the Buffalo Nation does not freely roam, this is an example of land access lost. So total land and percent of land access lost from original Oceti-Sakowin boundaries, or homelands, excuse me. The map in purple demonstrates our original Oceti-Sakowin homelands, and the map below shows South Dakota reservations currently. Since the 1851 and the 1868 treaties were established, we lost almost all of our land. Comparison of land access lost. Comparison of land access lost in regards to individual South Dakota reservations. So the table shows the percentage of land lost for our original homelands and what that looks like for each reservation. As you can see, each reservation has nearly lost 100% of their land access. Historical acts of displacement and resource extraction. The Dawes Act directly affected land on the reservation. You could gain temporary ownership to land by converting to westernized agriculture. However, this was not guaranteed as there was an application process. The Homestead Act allowed non-citizens to apply for federal land if they were immigrants and they had the intent to become U.S. citizens. Massacres did not always involve people, but the buffalo as well. During this time period, thousands of buffalo were killed. The Relocation Act is somewhat of a current example of how Indigenous people were given the opportunity to leave the reservation and convert to city living. In the United States, in Article 2 of the treaty, solemnly agreed that no persons except such officers, agents, and employees of the government as may be authorized shall ever be permitted to pass over, settle upon, or reside in the territory described in this article. This quote and establishment of act demonstrate how this treaty was broken. Cultural resurgence, hunting rights, access to hunt on tribal lands, but this is conditional. Although we have the right to hunt within our individual tribal boundaries, in order to do this, we must first apply and then pay the application fee, then purchase tags, and this can range from anywhere from $5 to $180, depending on the area and game hunted. Checkerboarded lands. Some tribes have checkerboarded lands, making it difficult to navigate and limits our access even further. On the environmental side, the animals have a difficult time surviving due to inability to find shelter.
Our next question, the bison range research question: how has the displacement of bison from their historical range impacted our way of life? Some connections between the Deoyate and the Oceti is that not only did they provide food, clothing, shelter for Lakota people, but they were also an integral part of our identities, our spirituality, and our culture. The buffalo are part of our songs, our ceremonies. So we have this deep connection with the buffalo, and we have a prophecy that says when the buffalo are gone, the Lakota are gone. And so I think that really tells the relationship that we have with the buffalo. Our methods. First, we located a bison historical range map through ArcGIS Pro online. And that map was labeled Bison Range, Kentucky Geological Survey, 1876. We then imported that map into Google Colab and then separated the layers to show each range over time, changed projection systems to calculate area of total bison range, and we converted that to acres, and then calculated the percentage of land loss. And these are our results. Bison ranges over time and the percentage of ranges that have been lost. So the image on the left kind of just shows the different layers, and then the image in the middle depicts the historical range, and then the points on the map show where there are current bison herds. But although there are no truly free roaming buffalo anymore. And then the table on our right kind of shows the percentage of land loss from pre-1800 bison range. Cultural resurgence, the impacts on bison, kind of reiterating back to the beginning of the buffalo and the Lakota. We walk hand in hand on this earth. And the displacement of buffalo have made it difficult to maintain these relationships of sustainability. It's really beautiful to see that these connections are strengthening or returning. And I think one thing that talking about practicing these connections is when we take the life of a buffalo, there are some ways to show respect. So we will offer songs and offerings depending on your teachings. And usually we have this relationship or kinship with them where we are able to identify which tatanka will present themselves. And then we utilize every part of the buffalo, so there was essentially no waste. And a couple of days ago, my family and I, we had a tatanka harvest for our ceremony, and it was really beautiful to see us connect with each other and connect with the buffalo. So that's what the buffalo bring, is healing and connection. And with the displacement and the lack of free roaming bison, we cannot hunt on a regular basis. Now there's either an application process depending on your tribe, or there has to be some type of public event depending on your tribe for you to have access to buffalo. Our tribe, on the other hand, we're really fortunate to have enough buffalo that they donate buffalo for cultural or spiritual purposes.
Pathways to restorative justice and sustainable management. National and state park recommendations. We acknowledge that federal parks offer free access. However, For an example, Black Hills, we have the ownership, but we do not have free access or control. We do not have free access of sacred sites like Black Elk's Peak or Mount Rushmore. In hunting rights, we have a little bit of control, but this is contradicted by fees while applying to hunt and purchasement of tags. An example of access would be north and south units of the Badlands National Park. The Pine Ridge Reservation has access of the north unit. However, the south unit, they have ownership, access, and control. Proposals for native access control and or tribal co-management, tribal management and inclusion regarding bison, elimination of hunting application fees and purchasement of tags. In 2007, the United Nations declared the rights of Indigenous people to have the right to maintain, control, protect, and develop their cultural heritage, traditional knowledge, and traditional cultural expression.
Future work and additional analysis. Time-lapse of how our territories and buffalo change over time. Map current tribal bison herds in South Dakota. Correlate land displacement of bison and Oshete Map the Dawes Act and the Displacement Act on Oshete lands. Research additional agreements on land. The 7th generation principle, protecting natural resources for future generations. In the words of Tashunke Witgo, the Red Nation shall rise again, and they will be a blessing for a sick world, a world filled with broken promises, selfishness, and separation, a world longing for light again. In that day, there will be those among the native elders who will carry knowledge and understanding of unity among all living things. And the young white ones will come to those of my people and ask for this wisdom. That time of the 7th generations will be when all the colors of mankind, red, yellow, black, and white, will gather under the sacred tree of life, and the whole earth will become one circle again. And here are all the references that helped us in our project. Any questions?
Great job, Oglala Lakota College. Everybody give them a round of applause. And please, if anybody has a question or comment that they'd like to put in the chat, please do so or turn on your microphone. Yeah, really awesome story. Love the way that you kind of weave together the story of Oshete and Piteoyate and kind of really continue to hammer home that point about how the two are really sort of like inseparable. And the way that those maps change with time. I think Brett mentioned that seeing that through data visualization really helps to bring that point home. Thank you, Summer, Dupree, for all your help. Anybody want to add anything before we put in a couple final comments?
I would just like to say what a pleasant afternoon this has been. Nate and Elsa, I'm really impressed with what you're doing. This is great. And all the students, all the faculty who took part, I enjoyed and was challenged a little bit by everything I saw here. Great job.
Oh, thank you, Professor Dolan. Great to hear that from you. We appreciate the kind words and the feedback. And you're getting some love in the chat too there. Thank you, Max, for being here and for watching, and for Brett Alberts for coming back. Brett's one of our past advanced interns too. So great to see some folks coming back. Yeah, I just want to say again, thanks to all the hard work for everybody for the summer, and thanks to Elsa and to Catherine and to all of our faculty partners and advanced interns, and to all of our undergraduate interns. It's been so fun getting to work with and learn from you all over the past several months. I know that we threw a lot at you and we asked you to do this during a time in the year when there's a lot of things going on and there's a lot of crazy stuff happening in the world right now. And so I just want to again express my appreciation for all your time and commitment